Morning, everyone. Might wait a few seconds, see if this is working this time. But I've got, I'm going to discuss like how Rishi Sunak has what you would think he was really happy to win Uxbridge and South Ruislip last week. And now it looks like he's actually turned what was a minor victory into a disaster. Because what happened, I say inevitably, it's actually mind-boggling for me that the climate change deniers all jumped onto the result. Oh, it proves that people are interested in net zero. When ULEZ, just for the avoidance of doubt, has absolutely nothing to do with environmental policies. ULEZ charge, the ultra low emissions charge, you can see how it might be like that, but it's not. It's a public health measure. It deals with like NOx gases and things like that. Nothing to do with carbon emissions. You can have the biggest gas guzzler on the road and it's completely exempt from ULEZ charges. In fact, almost nobody would pay ULEZ charges, like 10% of people. And it's certainly not by and large Tory voters, because almost all cars, like 90% of road vehicles, are exempt from the ULEZ charge. It raises like nothing. But they took it as an environmental measure, took the Uxbridge result, even though it was a solid Tory seat. It's been a solid Tory seat even during Labour's last period in government, and they only won it by 495 votes. The climate change deniers, the anti-net zero group in the Conservative Party, have decided, no, this proves that we should stop with net zero. And I'm there thinking to myself, right, well, this is self-destructive from their point of view, because actually the policies are really popular, and I'm going to show you why in a moment. But then yesterday, Sunak was asked about it, and he effectively said that actually, because when he was asked about his commitment to the environmental policies, he said that actually we maybe should rethink any that involve costs to people. Now, he's not doing that because he thinks that's going to be popular. He's not doing it for votes because it's not going to get him many. He's doing it because a small section of his party, who are very vocal in the media, have trapped him. And I'm just going to show you, just because you may think to yourself, in fact, I'll show you one thing to begin with, just to show you why Sunak might be doing this, and then I'll show you how actually it's not going to work at all. So we're going to look at a few surveys on YouGov. So here is specifically about ULEZ. This one is a recent survey. It's from a few days ago. And it says, in London, the ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ, is an area in which a fee is charged to the most polluting vehicles driving into the centre of the city. Would you support or oppose a similar ULEZ-like surcharge in your local area? Now, you can see here, there's more opposition than support. Like in terms of like people in general, we've got 34% would support it against 51% opposing it. So, you know, and obviously if you look along, go straight to politics, how people would do this. Conservative voters, certainly only 20% would support it, whereas you've got here, what, 72% opposing it. So you can see from a Conservative point of view how you could almost believe that Sunak is onto a winner. Oh, you know, it costs people, they don't like it. But what I would point out is this when it comes to ULEZ. First of all, most people don't actually realise what ULEZ is. They're completely misinformed about it. And Labour did not help the situation by failing to inform people during the campaign. But the other thing is, what people are worried about here, and I'll show you this with a couple of other polls, is not that they're opposed to ULEZ. They've been told, oh, it costs you like, what is it, £12.50 a day to drive around? Well, I can't afford £12.50 a day. That's what's worrying people. They imagine themselves having to be charged an extra £12.50 a day to drive their car and think, well, I can't afford that. So, of course, I'd oppose it. They're not necessarily opposing the measure. So, but in reality, the vast majority wouldn't pay it. I wouldn't pay a penny. Most people wouldn't pay a penny. 90% of people wouldn't pay a penny. Admittedly, the ones who would are more likely to be those who can least afford it. It's not, a great way of doing it. But if we look at some other polls, so this is about environmental policies in general, because ULEZ, remember, is not an environmental policy. So in terms of climate change, so this was at the end of, this was a few weeks ago. This is at the end of June, YouGov. When it comes to taking strong action on tackling climate change, which of the following comes closest to your view? And you can see here, 62% of people say Britain should take strong action on tackling climate change, even if other countries do not. So sometimes what a lot of the right wing try and say is, well, what's the point of us doing anything if China's not? Now, in reality, China's actually doing more than we are. But nonetheless, that is the usual thing that they try. What is the point of doing it unless everyone else does it? But it's a little bit like pacifism then, isn't it? It's like only works if everyone else does it. That's what they're trying to argue. Whereas here, specifically, people are asked, even if no one else does anything about it, should we? And 62% say yes. Only 24 saying only if others do the same. And then you go along, because this breaks it down by region. You've still got that consistently strong support there by gender, age, social grade. You've got really strong support for it. But even when you look at politics, obviously I'll tell you what's really weird, right? So Labour, Lib Dem and Remain on 78, 79 support. Conservatives on 47, Leave on 48. Isn't that a really weird correlation between on these two issues, totally different issues, climate change emergency and Brexit, that you've got that really strong correlation in the values between Labour, Lib Dem and Remain and Conservative and Leave. But nonetheless, the point is, Conservative voters, these are 29 Conservative voters, by the way, 47% support, only 41% opposed. Now, you could say to yourself, well, they're still very close, aren't they? But I would point something else out. Think about this. This is about climate change, right? This is about whether Britain should take action on it, even if others don't. Think about two types of voter. You've got your reliable voters, like I'm a reliable voter for Labour, right? It almost doesn't matter what they do. I'm still going to vote for them because I think they're the best option, right? So the Conservatives have reliable voters as well. Then you've got your unreliable voters. They're the ones who are prepared to vote for you, but only under certain circumstances. In other words, they're perfectly prepared to go from one party to another. Where do you think the unreliable Conservative voters are in this? Do you think they are the ones who are against taking unilateral action on climate? Or do you think they'd be in the lump where they'd want Britain to take unilateral action? I would suggest that the unreliable voters, what you might call the swing voters, are much more likely to be in this majority one here, which means that Sunak, by now scaling back his environmental credentials, is distancing himself from the very voters he needs to attract. Now, I'll catch up with some comments because there's two more points I want to make as well. But let's catch up with a bit. Oh, dear. Craig saying, oh, no, it's Hugh, sorry. Give us another Mike Yarwood, another one of my impressions. I don't really have impressions. I have a silly voice I put on to mock posh people. And according to someone in the comments when I did it, apparently my own voice sounds posher than my impression of a posh person. So not obviously working. Wish Labour schooled their MPs on how to rebut Tory lies when interviewed on the media. Yeah, I mean, I imagine you would think, wouldn't you, that MPs will get media training, how to handle the media. But I certainly wish that more MPs just put themselves, just practice more. That's what they need to do, just practice more. Like Rishi Sunak at the moment, Downing Street are planning on avoiding scrutiny with Rishi Sunak. He's going to avoid talking to journalists who might write unkind things about him. And this is the wrong way to do it. You can sort of understand hiding away from journalists so that, excuse me, that they can't ask him awkward questions and trip him up. Okay. What happens at the election? What happens at the election when you can't, if you hide away like Theresa May did in 2017, you're going to lose. I mean, he's going to lose anyway, but he'll lose even worse. So he can't afford to. So absolutely, you need to actually not seek out easy interviews. You need to seek out the really unpleasant ones, the nasty ones, because you'll learn, you'll get better. But anyway, at the moment, I think it's Tory MPs having the worst of those. One of the most obvious benefits of the EU, apart from trade, is the environmental stuff. Well, this is the thing. Like, in terms of being members of the EU, it meant that there was a common framework for workers' rights, consumer rights, civil rights, environmental protections, health and safety protections, all of these things, which we had some of in our domestic legislation, but they're now all, the Conservatives are chopping a load of them. And environmental standards, absolutely, yes. But anyway, let's have a look at another, because I want to have a look at another poll as well. So this one is specifically about whether Britain should take climate action, whether or not others do. So then there was another one. This is, to what extent do you support or oppose the government's commitment to cutting carbon emissions to net zero by 2050? So this is specifically net zero, right? So the right wing would have you believe that, oh, we don't want net zero. People don't want net zero. It makes them colder and poorer. No, it doesn't. Reliance on fossil fuels has literally been what made people colder and poorer. It was, remember, people's energy bills doubled, and that was people's energy bills, never mind businesses' energy bills, specifically because of our reliance on gas, a fossil fuel. So anyway, if we go back here, supports net zero by 2050, 71% strongly support, only 16% oppose. So basically close to 5 times as many supporters opposed. And again, you get this same consistent view. And even within politics, look, Conservative voters, 63% support, only 29% oppose. More than double the number of Conservative voters support net zero as opposed to, rather than oppose it. And again, I'm still going to come back to this. If you think about types of voter, because what seems to be happening at the moment is the Conservatives it's like they're trying to appeal to their already reliable voters, the people who are Conservatives, who will vote Conservative, where the worst they can do is stay at home. But they're not going to vote for Labour. They're not even going to vote for the Liberal Democrats. These are the dyed-in-the-wool Tory voters. And it's like they're trying to appeal to them. And this is a madness. And this is why, I say bring it to Labour, where, some people will say, well, what Labour seem to be announcing doesn't seem to be keeping a lot of their supporters happy. It's like, well, no, because their supporters are going to support them anyway. When I was in the Labour Party meeting in right at the start of 2020, it was after Christmas, I think, and we were deciding who the CLP should give our backing. In fact, it must have been early 2020. We were deciding who we should give our backing to for the Labour leadership contest. At the time, there were 4 in the running for it, and I stood up and I said, look, we need to support whoever is going to appeal to people who don't support Labour but will do under the right circumstances. I said, you put a red rosette on a chimpanzee and I will vote for it. And it's really that simple. Whereas the Tories now are ignoring the voters they need to target. The voters they need to target are in favour of environmental policies. Rishi Sunak has decided now that he is going to appeal to not even, I say appeal to the reliable Tory voters. It's not even that. That's not why he's doing it. He's appealing to a small group of MPs. That's who he's appealing to, many of whom are paid by the climate change denying lobby, or pro fossil fuel lobby, however you want to look at it. Tories don't pay attention to these detailed polls. Perhaps it's a lesson for Labour to actually hire good researchers who can properly analyse detailed polls and legislate accordingly. Well, I think Labour's polling at the moment shows that they are doing that. I will be honest and say there are Conservatives who do pay attention to the polls. Like there's some reports that have come out in the last day or two showing that there are Conservatives who absolutely understand the situation. It's just that they're not holding any sway. Rishi Sunak is not listening to the strategists. He's listening to his MP. His MPs have got him literally boxed in. You know, it's like if you think about Rishi Sunak has two issues to deal with, by and large. He has the general election to deal with, and he has party discipline to deal with, because the Conservative Party is not united. All right. It's not even pretending to be united. It's splitting into multiple factions. So Sunak has party discipline and the general election to worry about. The general election is like a year away, whereas party discipline is every single day. So this is what he's doing. He's doing what Boris Johnson did. He's constantly putting out fires in the quickest and easiest and laziest way he can think of, even if it stores up problems for him later on. That's what he's doing. He's applying short-term solutions. In that respect, although he may seem more of a normal political leader than Boris Johnson, he's the same as Boris Johnson in that he is just saying and doing whatever is easiest to get him out of a hole, even if it makes the problem worse later on. It makes sense to get your reliable voter base out to vote, though, if it means there will be a massive propaganda campaign to keep Labour voters home. Cambridge Analytica. Well, yeah, you need your base to turn out, but at a time like this, like I tell you what, come the next general election, Labour should have a much easier time of doing that because, of course, people sense change. They know change is coming. It's mostly when people stay at home where they would normally vote, it's down to one of two reasons. Either it's a sort of apathy because you think the result's foregone conclusion. I mean, most seats, even though we're expecting a seismic change next year, most seats are still nonetheless going to stay as they are. They're fairly safe seats, and they're not really going to change. That will be the case for most of them. But if you live in a constituency where it could change and you sense that that change is on, then you are going to go out and vote. And that applies even if you want it to stay as it is. So the other type of stay-at-home voter are the ones who support a particular party but cannot bring themselves to support what that party stands for at that particular time. And that works often against the incumbent party, the party that's currently in government, because it's very difficult for most people to sensibly, even though some are trying it, attack a party when it's in opposition because it hasn't actually done anything. All you can be annoyed about is what they're saying, but you can't be annoyed at what they're doing because they're not doing anything. Gary's saying Phil taught in an FE college. I think I have taught in an FE college a long time ago, but I more recently taught in sixth form colleges. Some would consider comparing some of the current crop of tourists to chimpanzees would be an insult to chimpanzees. Well, possibly. You can at least train a chimpanzee to walk through the right door in the lobby. But there we go. Hung Parliament still on the cards? No, it's not. No, it's not. There is no poll that suggests it's going to come anywhere close to a hung Parliament. There is the only way there could possibly be a hung Parliament, because if you think about the three things that might influence it, the first is the economic circumstances. The economic outlook is dire. The second thing is the Conservatives actually pursuing policies that will appeal to people. Well, at the moment, they're not doing. This environmental policy is just the latest example of how Rishi Sunak is enthralled to a section of the far right who are very noisy in the media and are very rebellious in Parliament. He's not doing anything to appeal to target voters at all. And the third thing that would have to happen is Labour would have to suddenly do what several people who are not interested in them want them to do and completely change their strategy. At the end of the day, Labour may have missteps. I think they had a big misstep over the Uxbridge by-election, the campaign, and then they had a message meltdown at the weekend. But at the same time, it was one cock-up, and already Rishi Sunak's let him off the hook. Because I'll tell you, this is what the main point I would make about this, right? How do the Conservatives normally win elections? Because Labour's policies are always popular. Like even in 2019, when Labour suffered like the worst result, the policies in the manifesto were broadly popular, right? People approved of them. They just didn't believe that it would happen if they voted Labour. So what the Conservatives do is they basically say, this is their pitch, and it's always their pitch. It is to say, look, Labour's ideas might sound nice, but what they're not telling you is, first of all, they're all incompetent and they'll never do it. And second of all, it'll cost you a fortune, right? It's not worth it. But we can do the same thing in different ways, and we'll do it efficiently and competently, and we'll be able to lower your taxes. Now, it never happens. The taxes always go up and the services always go down. But that's what they promise. So they basically better deal Labour. They say, we will deliver all of these marvellous things and we'll do it at lower cost. So the public go, oh, well, they're promising to do it all at lower cost. Well, we'll vote for that then. Yeah, that sounds great. Now, what Rishi Sunak is doing here is he's not even promising the same things. Net zero is popular. People understand the need for it. It's popular across all political parties, across the age group, across the social grade group, regions. It's just popular, very popular. And Rishi Sunak has now said he's not committed to net zero, even though he's not said those words. He said, oh, well, we'll not support any measures that cost people. Well, it's like the media are telling people that it is going to cost, and the public are fine with it anyway. So he's basically now saying that he's not even competing with Labour on environmental policies. So instantly he's conceded all ground on environmental policies. Labour now have a much easier job saying it's really simple. It's no longer a case of Labour saying we are the ones who are serious about climate change, with the Tories saying, no, we are as well, but we'll do it cheaper. That's not happening. That's not what Sunak said. He said specifically that he will not pursue any policies if it means a cost. Well, they all require a cost. So that means he's not going to pursue anything there. What really annoys me is people who are equally vocal in criticising politicians and their refusal to vote. Oh, you mean the people who criticise refuse to vote? Yeah, you should always vote. You don't have to vote for a person. I used to say to my students, you don't, I can understand if you don't want to vote for any particular candidate. You mustn't feel that you should have to vote for a candidate, but go and vote. Just spoil your ballot. Just go along, draw a big grumpy face. Don't write anything rude because it's not the politician who sees it. Just draw a big grumpy face on it that's not indicating any candidate and just post it, because then at least you show us having voted. Like, what are the Tories doing at the moment with these by-elections to try and pour copium on the fact that they lost in, like, particularly Selby and Aintree? That's the one that really hurt them. They're going, oh, there's loads of Conservative voters didn't turn up. Yeah, it's a by-election, you idiot. But actually, as turnouts for by-elections go, it was pretty good. But nonetheless, it was a by-election. But they're going, oh, no, Labour only won because because a load of Conservative voters didn't vote. And it's like, well, yeah, why do you think they didn't vote? Because they didn't want to vote for you. But the higher the turnout, the less they get to say that. If the turnout's really high, the higher the turnout, the less they are able to say, well, you only won because other people didn't vote. It's like, well, no, because loads of people voted. So actually, they just didn't vote for you. Someone saying that I voted Labour in the last general election, though I thought I knew it was futile. Well, I mean, I would always encourage people to vote anyway, even if you're in a safe constituency, because apart from anything else, there is no constituency so safe that if everyone who doesn't normally vote turned out and voted for the other candidate, that it would still be safe. No one has, every single constituency, like the safest constituency. I was looking at this in 2019, actually, after the results. But even the safest constituencies, if all the people who didn't vote voted for the second place candidate, that second place candidate would have become the winner. So there's always enough people to overturn even a comfortable majority. And of course, at the next election, there'll be a lot of tactical vote. There will be a lot of tactical voting. We've already seen the evidence of it. We've seen tactical voting in the local elections. We've seen tactical voting in all three of these by-elections. There was very, very obvious tactical voting going on. Should Labour bring capital gains in line with income tax? Estimated 16 billion would go a long way to paying for their desired climate investment. So my initial reaction to that would be yes, because there's a lot of aspects to taxation which I don't think are fair. I've said, for example, they should bring national insurance in line with national insurance. Like, I pay less national insurance than someone earning the same as me as a salary. And when you consider that a salaried worker pays national insurance, but their employer also pays national insurance, so I'm actually paying way less tax. Really, I am taxed a lot less than a salaried worker on the same income, which is not, it's not right. So you can instantly go, yes, they should, just on, not only because it would raise more money, but because it's just fairer. That being said, I also understand that there are votes. There's a lot of those middle-class voters who go out and vote and will be going out to vote for Labour next year who will vote for lower taxes. So there are some tax breaks that Labour can and should get rid of. And we know some of them we will get rid of. We know they're getting rid of non-dom status. We know they're getting rid of the tax fiddle on private schools. And there are some, you're saying salaried workers should be getting a pension though. Yeah, but they don't always. In fact, when I started off working, it was not at all. I mean, I was a teacher, so the teacher's pension scheme, which is actually quite good, by the way. In fact, my teacher's pension scheme, I haven't been paying into it for anywhere near as long as my partner has into her private work pension scheme. And yet it's already, I mean, I'm not paying into it at all at the moment. And yet it's worth way more than her pension. We dug it out a few months ago and she looked at what her pension's worth and what mine's worth, and mine's worth loads more. So even work pensions are absolutely crap. But they weren't at all normal when I started my career. Like, in the public sector, pension's quite common, and teaching is very heavily unionized. But a lot of people working in the private sector just didn't have work pensions at all. Pension contributions reduce national insurance, don't they? Yeah, but I still pay less. They do, yes, because what happens is it's not that it directly reduces it, it's indirectly. It's because your taxable income, you take your pension contributions off first. So if you're paid £40,000 a year, say, but you pay into a pension, you're not taxed at £40,000. They take off let's say you pay £4,000 pension, so you're taxed at £36,000. National insurance should be reformed around what it's originally for, to pay for the NHS. I would certainly like to see much closer links between taxation and what it's been spent on. Yes, because that makes it a lot easier then to say, particularly if they do it for national insurance, well, the NHS has been restricted because plumbers are paying lower national insurance, right? So maybe put some on, the onus on people to say, well, maybe we should pay a bit more national insurance for a better NHS. An MP has a final salary scheme of 100%. No, they don't. No, they don't. Unless they've been an MP for a very long time. It's a good pension. It may be a final salary. Oh, hang on a minute. It may be a final salary scheme, but it's 1/51 in terms of what they get. So in other words, they'd have to have been an MP for 51 years before they get 100% pension. You still pay the national insurance for the 40,000, do you? Oh, okay. I don't know. I never work out my taxes. I just tell HMRC what I've made, take off my expenses, and they tell me what to pay. But I do note it is always less than Listen to Taxman says it would be if I was salaried. Seem to remember. I remember seeing a video of a politician talk about the NHS and national insurance. Yeah, well, so I mean, national insurance obviously is also supposed to be about pensions as well. But when the NHS came out, all the leaflets about it were pointing out to people that it's not free. It's an insurance. Like that's what does my head when Nigel Farage says, "Oh, we should have an insurance-based NHS scheme." We do. It's just not a private insurance-based system. It was always made out that you pay for the NHS via contributions. It's just that it is free when you need it. But the idea is you are paying for the NHS via your contributions. That's why lots of people my age bought a second house even before prices went mental, as their pension, we knew private pensions were poor value, need a national pension scheme. That would be quite good. Yeah. A lot of banking services, and insurance, like financial services, I think would be better being nationalised. Say teachers deserve a good pension, put up brats every day. Well, yes, this is true, but you could argue the same as a lot of workers deserve it. It's just that teaching, almost every teacher is in a union. It's really this simple. You've got some workers where like almost nobody's in a union in an organization. And teaching, it's like 90 odd percent. It's like almost everyone in teaching's in a union. So you do tend to get quite good deals. Even then, you can't like swim against the stream. For example, it used to be the teacher's pension used to be more generous than it is now, but it's still much better than an average private work pension, of course. But anyway. Well, we're sort of run out of time anyway. We're now discussing the technicalities of taxation. So that's probably a good point to leave it there. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. Don't forget to click the like button and to subscribe to the channel. And you can look in the description below. We'll probably put the links. Well, I'll put the links to these surveys in if you wanted to look at them yourself, as well as details for Patreon if you want to join Graham listening to James O'Brien in a few minutes. But have a very good day, everyone. And until next time, I'll see you later.